Steeler Nation, Steeler Country, we are back. I should say I am back from the sick team. We went down to the NFL Combine in Indy. Mike Nicastro is back. I know you guys missed us, but we have a lot to talk about. All these draft prospects. We have some clips we're going to go over. The NFL Combine was crazy. I ate steak. Me and Sammy got pasta. It has been just electric. I'm still riding the high off of that weekend. It was a short trip, but a great trip. So let's just get to it. The Sick Podcast, Steelers Crazy.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Steelers Crazy.
Aaron Smith shields. Flacco, Polamalu takes it home. Super Bowl 43. Pittsburgh might be bound for that thanks to number 43.
The sickest Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Damn, man, with all that steak and pasta, I would think you were working out for a potential NFL spot.
Yeah, you never know. I didn't get to do the 40 time. It was just too crazy outside. It got busy. But
I can see you on the bench press.
Yeah, definitely got my reps in there. But yeah, I mean, everything was great. I mean, I appreciate the sick team bringing me down. We really were able to get a lot of good content. I know I was in touch with you. I know you were there in spirit. But yeah, just to kind of recap the NFL Combine, it's basically, it's in Indianapolis. It was so we had the media day, the first half of the day, and you would just walk in there and it was just everyone. I mean, I walked in, I went to the restroom and came back, and Sammy and Bryce Young are just hanging out. And he's like, "Hey, I'm Bryce." I'm like, "Yeah,
they're boys now. They're boys."
Yeah, so I mean, we seen Jerry Jones at the steakhouse.
He didn't pick up your tab.
Everyone, no,
Jerry didn't pick up your tab.
I was just happy that he got down the steps in one piece. God bless him. So, but yeah, I mean, everything. It was just amazing. Ran into Brian Flores, Matt Hasselbeck, Kurt Warner. I mean, guys, again, sorry, Kurt. We apologize for the Super Bowl. But
Matt too.
Yeah,
don't forget about that. We almost forgot about that when we were talking the other day.
Yes,
we beat Matt and Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, it was down there. You can't even explain it. Like, there was people who weren't even there interviewing people. They just go down, and you just run into so many people, and it's just such a good networking opportunity. And to really, these guys, they're about to be professional athletes. And it was just crazy. I mean, just seeing, a lot of the Pitt guys there, and, some of the people that we had on our podcast, and, some hopefully future Steelers. I think we'll kind of jump right into it. Really, what stuck out to me the most in person is just how personable all these young athletes were, and just how friendly and humble everyone was. I mean, there was people from NFL Network, ESPN, everyone who is anyone. Lucas Oil Stadium's beautiful. Not really a big Colts guy, but rather than that, I will say that the atmosphere was great, and Indianapolis treated the sick team well. But so I think we have a clip. Peter Skoronsky, I think I pronounced that right.
Yep.
This guy here, man, I'll tell you what, man, he's just the nicest guy. And you could just tell that this dude is going to be a superstar lineman. So let's play that clip, and let's just talk about it a little bit, because I really hope this guy is who the Steelers are taking at 17.
I met with them on Thursday.
What are your thoughts on Mike Tomlin and them?
Yeah, it was great. It was great talking to Coach Tomlin. He's clearly a really personal guy. Seems like a really great players coach. Obviously, the success speaks for itself. They're always competitive every year. I really enjoyed that interview.
Peter, what goes into film?
Yeah, man, Skoronsky. What a last name. I feel like Pittsburghers, Yinzers around the dinner table at Thanksgiving would just eat that up. I mean, literally and figuratively. Skoronsky. That just is a Pittsburgh, like, blue-collar steel worker type name. I honestly can't say it enough. Just has that raspy quality to it. The dude is a beast. You said it. You hope he falls to 17 and is able to be in the black and gold next year. I think the problem is, because he's such a beast, that's just not going to happen. And I think the Steelers would have to consider a potential trade-up to go and get him. When I look at Peter Skoronsky, overall, though, he's my number 2 offensive lineman prospect in this draft. I know we'll get to my number 1 shortly coming up, another guy that you were able to talk to and get some feedback with. We'll just say he's in the state to the left. But Peter Skoronski, man, this guy is – remember when we talked to Trey Essex on this sick podcast, and Trey, former Steelers Super Bowl champion, came on, and the words he used were the Steelers need a blue blood offensive lineman. They need a blue blood. He used Quentin Nelson as an example, a dude that would just come in from a power conference who has a resume that stacks up against some of the best offensive linemen in the country, a guy with experience, leadership, and Peter Skoronski checks all of those boxes. Nothing against, our guys we've had on the show. McClendon Curtis, offensive lineman, Chattanooga. Good dude, good player. He's going to be a good NFL player. Joey Fisher, I should say, out of Shepherd. Another guy I think is going to be a good NFL player as a late-round pick, sleeper on the board there. But they don't fit that blue blood mold like the top 3 offensive linemen in this draft do. Peter Skoronski, Broderick Jones, and Paris Johnson Jr. Skoronski, there are some hesitations league-wide that he could ultimately be a guard. He has short arms. Right, like we keep hearing that. Last year we heard what? Kenny Pickett, small hands.
His hands are too small. I mean, come on, man.
His arms are too small. Well, they weren't too small at Northwestern to be one of the best offensive linemen in all of college football. So I do see two sides of it. If he's going to be one of the best guards for 2 decades in the National Football League, like Quentin Nelson, then yeah, I get the move. But if he's going to be an above average tackle, that might be more valuable to a team in the future, especially a team like the Steelers at left tackle.
Yeah, and honestly, just standing next to him, I mean, I'm not the tallest guy. I mean, this dude's calf muscles were like as big as each of my biceps. I mean, the dude is just like,
and you've been working out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, this dude is just a brick wall. I mean, you wrote an article on Yinzer Crazy, I think, a few months ago about, how the Steelers haven't drafted an offensive lineman in the past decade. And something I really took from when I read that article is that this is Omar Khan's time to shift the narrative. It's his world. I mean, I'm sure Kevin Colbert, I think that he was there earlier in the week. I'm sure that he's always going to, giving tips and being, giving him guidance. But, this is Omar Khan's year to really show like, hey, like the Steelers it starts up front. The Steelers need an offensive lineman. I have nothing against Jordan Addison. I think that he will be a great player. But if you take him at 32, I'm fine with it. But taking another wide receiver when we already have George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Steven Sims Jr. showed promise this year. Kelvin Austin.
Pat. Yeah, Pat's a top option.
Yeah, Connor Hayward. We're good. We're good. So I hope that Jordan Addison goes and best of luck to him somewhere else. I just don't see it. Like I get the Kenny Pickett connection, but the Steelers need an offensive lineman or a cornerback. Will Joey Porter Jr. be there at 17? I don't know. And I don't want to just speculate and say, oh, well, they're just going to take him if he is available because Joey Porter, was a Steeler. I understand that, but the dude's a baller at the end of the day. And then I know with the Gonzalez kid, I don't think he's going to be there either. He's
a freak.
Yeah. I mean, that dude, I was watching the dude's highlight tape. I'm like, I can't believe I've never, I haven't really heard of him until I started doing my draft homework. And man, that dude, but I mean, yeah, I mean, we need to get an offensive lineman. Point blank.
It goes back to that blue bud conversation.
Yes.
Who were the last couple offensive linemen the Steelers drafted that were almost Hall of Famers? Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro. Those were the offensive linemen the Steelers selected. They selected them both in the first round, and both of them turned out to be all pros. Florida, Stanford, blue bloods. So this season, man, I tell you what, I have been really on the fence about the Steelers moving up in the draft. If I had to make a prediction, I would put it at 90% that they don't trade up. I just don't see it happening. There's still a lot of talent on the board. But if one of those 3 top offensive linemen did fall, I would move up a couple of picks to secure getting them. I think it's worth it at the end of the day to give up a future third rounder or, move back in the second round this year because they do have pick 32 to get a stud, because once Johnson, Skoronski, Broderick Jones are off the board, there's a serious drop off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that this leads us into a nice segue for our next Izzy Abanikanda, a Pitt guy. I caught up with him at the Combine, and we have a clip here. And everyone, before you go, we don't need another running back. Listen, there is a lot of NFL teams who have the 3 running back set. You have a third down back. You have a goal line back. You know, Najee Harris, it can only take so much. I know he's a workhorse, but it is good to have options. I don't think Benny Snell is the answer. I think we kind of already established that. Jaylen Warren was, again, another guy who just really stepped up and proved his worth. So I'm excited to see what he'll do in his second season. But this guy right here, I mean, he killed it at Pitt. I mean, I watched him just completely run all over the ACC. So let's play this clip. I asked him what it would mean to play in Pittsburgh and what the fans meant to him, and being back with his quarterback, Kenny Pickett. The same practice facility at Pitt with the Steelers. What would it mean to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, and have you been in talks with Mike Tomlin or anyone over there?
I haven't been in talks with them. I actually was supposed to have informed them the other day, but something wrong at the time, like I said. But being around, if I get back to Pitt, it would be lovely. I love the fans down there. I love the city, 412, hell of Pitt. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, he was just gleaming ear to ear. I think that he probably realized that I was from Pitt and, covered them and had some familiarity with him. And I think, later round pick, I'm not sure where do you think that he'll be projected, like he'll be available, if so?
I think he's a 4th, 5th round guy, only because the running back position is devalued.
Yeah.
And I think there are guys ahead of him, like the Texas running backs, Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, Alabama, Jahmyr Gibbs. He's probably in that like 6th, 7th best running back in the NFL draft.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a really good player.
Yeah.
I went over his stats the other day, and, holy McMoley. You talk about, I think he had a 6 touchdown game. The guy, I think, led the ACC in rushing touchdowns, rushing yards. I think you made a really good point off the top when you talked about 3 running back systems, right, or multiple running back systems. The point isn't to take away carries from Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren. The key is to make them better. Look what Jaylen Warren did for Najee Harris last year, right? Maybe Izzy Abanikanda can do the same thing for Jaylen Warren or Najee Harris. Obviously, running backs as well. I mean, that position is volatile. They get hurt quite often. You do need a few. How many times have we seen Benny Snell be thrust into action? D'Angelo Williams in the past. You can go all the way down the list. Amos Zaraway.
It's like having a good backup. Yeah, it's like having a good backup quarterback. I mean, Kenny Pickett, had concussion issues. Mitch Trubisky was next in line. You need to reactivate Mason Rudolph last year to make sure that if something happened to Mitch, I mean, football injuries happen, and you can't project when they're going to happen. It's sporadic. It just happens, and you got to be ready. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter the level at which you're playing at. It's always the next man up mentality. And I think that having the depth is never a bad thing. We seen on defense with, our guy Chris Wormley, when guys went down, he needed to step up, and he stepped up in a big way. And then when you step up in a big way and they show that you can prove yourself, then you get more reps, you get more carries. And that's just football.
Should they prioritize running back? Hell no. I mean, they have 2 decent ones. But if you want a really good player at a position that's going to take pressure off 2 top running backs, Najee and Jaylen, and a quarterback, who needs all the help he can get, because obviously you don't want your quarterback throwing the ball 40 times a game, especially in this type of offense. Why not go after Izzy? A couple teams in the NFL, I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who made a run to the Super Bowl, of course, could have won that thing, used 3 running backs all year. Sanders, Gainwell, Boston Scott. The Dolphins last year, Mike McDaniel, this offensive guru, this next, generation of offensive coaches did the same thing.
Yeah.
Mostert, Edmonds in there, and then he traded for Jeff Wilson. I think of the 49ers too. The Mike McDaniel tree, they've always done that. So listen, it's cool for us to talk about Izzy because it's a local connection and you got to talk to him a little bit. But it's a lot more than just like this cute little feel-good story. Yeah, let's talk about Izzy because he's a Pitt guy and we got to talk to him. No, I think I'm with you. I think the Steelers could get a steal in the 4th or 5th round if he is available.
Yeah, so let's shift it a little bit. Let's talk about some other guys. Let's talk about Broderick Jones and Paris Johnson. I know that your Mike Kuiper Jr. will call you. Just kind of
Got better hair than me.
I don't know, man. It's pretty close, but maybe I'm being biased. But yeah, man, just talk about those two guys. Just shed some light on for our viewers. And I just, because Broderick Jones, to me, I feel like that can be another. If again, this is what's crazy about this draft to me. In all reality, is I have no idea, rather than like the first 5 picks of who's going to go where. Like this is like the most unpredictable draft that I've ever seen in my lifetime, if I must say.
I think you're going to see a lot of quarterbacks in those top 5 because teams are going to be moving up to snag these guys without risking the fact that they couldn't get one, which is going to benefit the Steelers because it'll push better talent position down the board. I'll be quick with this one. We touched on it a little bit earlier. Paris Johnson Jr. is a plug-and-play left tackle. You draft him, you put him at left tackle. He's there for the next 10 years, and you don't look back. So he, for me, is one of the top players on the entire board for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they'll get him, or have a chance at him, but if I were to sneak up and offer a trade, that's my number 1 target. Skoronski, number 2. Broderick Jones, number 3. I watched some tape. Broderick Jones, I watched him play against LSU this past year in the SEC Championship. To be honest, he got his ass whipped a little bit by B.J. Ojulari, who's also going to be a first-round pick out of LSU. But he has a ton of talent, and the measurables are there. He's a guy from Georgia, and the Steelers scouted and watched a lot of George Pickens last year. I'm sure they're watching guys like Keely Ringo, even Jalen Carter this year. So they're going to have a great feel for what he can do. Like I said, he's not a perfect prospect. He's a distant 3 for me behind Paris and Peter, but his 3rd place is much higher than my distant 4th or 5th when you start talking about like DeJuan Jones, Darnell Wright. So I think he'd be an awesome pick at 17. I really do, when it's all said and done, because those 3 for me are the 3 best O-linemen.
Yeah, so talk about another guy that you talked to on the show, Dayon Henley. Dude's again a baller. And Jalen Reed as well. Just touch on those 2, and then we'll wrap it up because I know it's the weekend, and but we're going to be back Tuesday. I know you're going to be in Mexico, but things are going to be happening, man, here over at the Steeler Crazy site. So just make sure you subscribe, Sick Podcast, follow us on Twitter, all the socials, leave us a review on Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We're not just on YouTube. Just make sure that you subscribe. Free Steeler content all year round.
Free? We're free. I thought we were charging now. Fair enough. Dayon Henley, we had him on the show, like you said. Go back and check out that show. What a personable, hilarious, smart, relatable dude he is. Guy that switched from wide receiver at Nevada to linebacker at Washington State. He bulked up like 20 pounds this past year, so he ran a little bit slower of a 40 than I thought he'd run. I think he was in the early 4.5s. I thought he'd run maybe in the 4.2s. I actually joked around with him on the podcast that he might run in the 4.2s, but I thought he might crack the 4.4s. It doesn't matter for me. His speed flashes on film. He's a new breed of linebackers in the NFL. Guys that run sideline to sideline, guys that can cover tight ends, which Steelers have never been able to freaking do. It feels like over the past decade, from Gronk to Kelsey to Andrews, so on and so forth. Henley has got the measurables. Will his game translate? Can he, add a little bit more weight? Can he stop the run? I think are the big questions. But he's a guy in the second round that I would run the card up for. And then Reed, you mentioned this. I keep bringing up this Michigan State connection. I don't want the Steelers or think the Steelers will draft a receiver in the 1st or 2nd round. So if you're looking in the 3rd or 4th, Reed is a really good option. Turn on his tape. He was a highlight reel at Michigan State. He's got a lot of intangibles. And I always make the connection when the Steelers are watching tape of somebody they've drafted before. There are players that stand out that they are more recognizable, I guess is what I'm looking for. They're just on their palate. And I know they're watching a ton of Connor Hayward last year. They drafted him. They played Pitt in a bowl game, Michigan State, in the Peach Bowl. So if you're watching Connor Hayward, you're watching Reed. And you're probably like, holy crap, this guy's good. It's the same thing I said the last couple of years when the Steelers drafted 2 Texas A&M players. They drafted Buddy Johnson, linebacker, And then they drafted that same year Dan Moore at left tackle. Well, I said last year, you know what? They watched a lot of A&M. I wonder if DeMarvin Leal, defensive lineman, is on their radar. I put him in my final mock draft. They took him. So don't underestimate that connection. Makes sense with Georgia too, with Pickens. You could say the same thing with Pickett and Izzy, maybe even Kalijah Cansey. Some of these guys that they took last year, keep in mind that they're watching that film more than others. So they'll stand out to them to a different degree in terms of, who they've scouted.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. This is the most exciting time of the year. I know you're a big draft guy, and we appreciate everyone who's been rocking with us so far. It's been just so awesome. Again, the Combine experience, I can't wait for you to come next year. Hopefully we'll be able to have a booth on a steak on ready to run. Hopefully Omar Khan will join us. I would rather have him than
Jerry better pay for that
Jones.
steak though.
Yeah, I think he paid for the whole restaurant. He had a bus out front with a Dallas Cowboy. But they know that they could be America's team, but they know who the world's team is, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Boom.
But one thing that I kind of wanted to touch on in I tweeted this, I think, the other day, and I just kind of wanted to get your take on it. Now, this is I do not hate on any man. Okay, get your money.
Sounds like you're about to do it.
No.
Anytime you start with that.
No. I am happy for all these guys getting their money. They should be laughing at the franchises that gave them this money, though. The quarterback contracts that have recently came about, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, what in the world? These dudes have zero. What Daniel Jones has one playoff win. I get it. He's 25 years old. That's the only one but he's still unproven. Geno Smith had one good year. Good for him. He didn't write back. I'm excited for him, even as a Pitt guy. I know he's a WVU guy. Derek Carr has never won a playoff game in his 9-year career and then the Saints think that he's the second coming of Drew Brees. So explain to me this. When Kenny Pickett, how many more years does Kenny Pickett have on his rookie contract?
He's got 4.
He has
Steelers
4 years.
Better maximize that shit.
And God bless Pittsburgh football, because listen, Kenny Pickett deserves more money just off of what he did in the 2-minute drill and almost getting the Steelers into the playoffs this year. It just baffles me that this is where we're at right now. That's the standard. $105 million, $35 million a year for unproven. If you're winning Super Bowls, if you're going into the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, I get it. But come on, man. These guys are just, this is you might as well just burn that money, because I guarantee you there might be one of those quarterbacks who get to the NFC or AFC championship game. I don't think any of them are getting to a Super Bowl. So I'm just saying, man, people can say what they want about my man, Kenny Pickett, but guess what? I'll tell you 2 things, and you can say your take, and we'll end on this. Defense wins championships, and Kenny Pickett doesn't need to be a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Steelers to make a deep playoff run and a Super Bowl run. And I think he showed that he can be Kenny franchise. And I will say that until I'm blue in the face. But please, for the love of God and all of creators here, please, these contracts are out of control. I want to be like Stephen A. Smith right now and be like to these owners and GMs, stay off the damn weed. If you win something, you get paid like a winner. If you don't have any playoff wins, and Daniel Jones, mediocre quarterback. I mean,
how can I add to that?
Baker Mayfield has the same stats as him.
Inflation, bro. You're paying $6 for eggs. That's why teams are paying $175 million.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess so. It better be some good eggs. That's I agree with you. That's
these eggs better change my life. I better be doing one-handed push-ups after that.
Before we wrap up, man, if you're watching this on YouTube, and make sure you do every once in a while, even if you're listening to us on the podcast, we got to see your pictures with the quarterbacks the Steelers kick butt in the Super Bowl.
There he is. Well, listen, this is a funny story. So Matt, he was walking and he's seen me and he was like, hey, he's like, if we're going to do this, he's like, you got to turn your hat around. So we're just out of respect.
You're wearing a Steelers hat, not a sick hat.
I am.
Right?
No, that was the day I wore the Steeler hat, but he made me turn it around out of respect. At first I thought it was Trent Dilfer, and then I seen his head, and I'm like, okay, that's Matt. So yeah, go ahead with the next one. Now there's the one where we just got done eating, and Kurt Warner's just walking out of the elevator, literally just nonchalantly, nicest guy ever, man. And I'm sorry what we did to you in the Super Bowl, but just an all-around humble and great guy. And this is what the NFL Combine is like. None of these, like, you probably could have just sat there and seen everyone and their mother that day, but we were just leaving. Like, we weren't like searching for anyone. You just run into people. I think that's the beauty of it.
It's like you just ran into every quarterback who lost to the Steelers in a big game. It's funny you didn't see Joe Flacco. You should have found Mark Sanchez.
Yeah.
Seek those guys out too and rub it in their face. Phillip Rivers wasn't there walking around.
Yeah, no, I didn't see Phillip. But yeah, man, I mean, we've seen so many people, and just to meet Sammy and Juliana, Nello, Rosa, everyone, they're just such a great family, and I'm just happy. I know you're happy as well to be a part of the sick team, and man, I'm just glad I made the trip. I mean, thankful to my wife. I have a 5-month-old at home, so she held it down, and yeah, man, it's just awesome. I love NFL football. I love Steeler football. I love being able, we've been best friends since kindergarten. It's just such a blessing to be able to do this and, do this for Steeler Nation, because at the end of the day, we do it for you. So
get some sleep, would you?
I'm going to try, but yeah, another Penguin game tomorrow, Penguin Flyers. I watched that devastating debacle, I guess you can say, last night. But yeah, I mean, and I guess we just got some news from the sick desk that the Steelers just cut Will Jackson. Not really that important.
Yeah, but, not a surprise. He was making more than Geno Smith.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, this has been another episode of Steeler Crazy. We'll be back next week. Again, this is a sick production, and the Steelers are the best team in the world, and that's why we have the best fans in the world, and that's why we have our own language in Pittsburgh. Look, I can't even say Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get that one for the thumb in the next 2 years. Send it to the bank. Call Vegas. Do what you want. I'm JY. This is Michael Nicasio. This has been another great episode of Steelers Crazy, the Sick Podcast. We'll see you next week. Stay safe.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Steelers Crazy on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.